Let's talk about the pivotal moment for you that you decided you need to be a kids coach.
Mm, that's a really beautiful question. Um, for me, I honestly fell into kids coaching. Like I didn't actually just decide. I went through my own journey of my own healing, and I'm here in Adelaide and in South Australia, and people just started asking me to work with their kids. And so for me, I got out the way. Like I didn't get scared by it. I didn't really have a plan, but through the all the modalities that I'd learned, like hypnotherapy, NLP, meditation, all the rest, I just kind of made it my own. And everything that I had learned on how to work through emotions or behaviors or the way that my mind was working literally became games for kids. In the moment with each child, I would let them pick me first. That's a big one. Like, do you want to work with me? That was my big download, that I never work with a child unless they said yes, even if the parent wanted me to. And then we'd play a game. And as that worked through, it just got bigger and bigger, and kids would continue to pick me. And I'd work with these children with depression, anxiety, bedwetting, sleeping in their own bed, phobias. But it wasn't until this year, like literally, I think it was about June this year, that I realized my why. It's because I needed me when I was 7. When I was 7 and I was at school and I was lonely and bullied and trying to work out how to be a human, like trying to make friends and connect, I needed me to tell me that I was worthy and lovable and unique and perfectly perfect to behave who Nichole should be, not pretend. And I wish I knew that back at 7. So yeah, it kind of fell on me, but it definitely is my mission. I understand why kids behave and think and feel the way they feel, as we probably all do. We just have to take our minds back.
It's so powerful because we are so vulnerable when we are kids, right? And when so many things happen to us, we oftentimes don't even know how to explain them or where they are
Mm.
coming from. And I know that you have a very specific relationship to kids themselves. I think you even say you love rather working with kids than adults. And what do kids mean to you?
Ah, kids are literally unconditional love. Like they come in just so perfect and so beautiful. I don't know if you've ever, you know, walked around a schoolyard or been on holidays in with kids. People are just so attracted to their energy. Like they are just little beings of love. And it's not until things happen, whether they observe something or go through something, that that energy shifts. And so, us as adults, when we start looking for answers or solutions, it's really hard to shift all of the behaviors, the strategies, the thoughts, the energy. But when a child, you give them an opportunity, it's one little thing that could totally change the whole direction. Their energy, their thought process, their belief in themselves, pride, love, all of those things. It's done in an instant, and you can see it in their whole beings. And so when children come to me, like I said, I never work with them unless they pick me. But as soon as they say yes, and I interview via either in Zooms or in my space or with them, and as soon as they say yes, their whole energy shifts. And that means that you can do and have a conversation about anything with children, anything. And that is special. Like I light up, I cry. I just know that that is my calling, to hold space for children. When an adult picks me, it's great, like it's cool. But when a child, like my whole nervous system will be like, yes, this is, you can feel that when you're in your life's purpose. And so it's a very special connection, and it could be one conversation. I could be working with them for over a year. Who knows? It's very powerful.
Would you say that you experienced this particular situation working with kids because you needed someone like you now back then when you were 7? That it is like a healing process for yourself even?
100%. 100%. Um, when I started in personal development, and I have a lot of modalities, when I started in that, I honestly thought I'd work with adults because of the transition that I'd been through, addiction and depression and relationship breakdown. And I did. I worked a lot with adults. But when I started working with kids, as I said, I kind of fell into it. It was a total shift. And I guess, yeah, every single client like that I was with, I got to play with. I believe it's a download. I believe that, that when you learn something, we're all here to serve. But when kids bring it to you, they do. They call you on stuff as well. They bring it to you. They're very raw. They're very honest, and it he literally heals my past, my lineage as well. And because of this, it makes me a better human now, makes me a better mother, makes me a better partner because of what they teach us as well.
Yeah, I feel it's never like a one-way street, even though we are the coaches, let's say, right? It's always like a highway. We can always, well, if we are open to it, right? You can be totally closed off to growth and right, having that growth mindset. But it's always like the highway, and you should be open to it, right? Because the moment you are open yourself, you will again enrich the other one by being open, by learning more. So you level up each other every time that you hold that kind of vulnerable space, even though you might be scared, even, right? Especially if these are older kids, I feel, because the little ones are like, they're like diamonds, they're so young and precious in their minds, like they have no faulty thoughts or anything. But as they grow older, they adapt all the mindsets and beliefs and have picked up a lot of trauma also from their parenting. And school is also, I feel, a very big topic for kids, what
Yes.
they have to go through, especially nowadays. It's like sometimes very horrific to see what they have to go through. And I'm sure
Yes.
in your work you see that also, that this part is very, very crucial and very traumatic for many, many kids.
Yeah, there's been a real shift as well. When we were younger, I'm assuming you're a similar age, but when we were younger, it wasn't really spoken about. It was like adults are adults and kids are kids, and that was it. There wasn't a in between. And so there was so many throwaway comments about, off you go, just be a kid, don't worry about it, those types of things. But we go back and we have our memories and we're like, well, I was worried about it. I didn't feel safe. I was, that comment did hurt my feelings, all of those things. And they don't come out into our later life. But if we're aware of that now, and our kids are, like you said, there is a massive shift. They are overstimulated. There's a lot more emotions, a lot more stress, overwhelm. The education system is kind of like falling, especially here in Australia. I'm sure it's worldwide, but they're kind of falling through cracks. They don't really want to go. And so by bringing the awareness, just the awareness that kids have these emotions and behaviors and feelings too, we're setting them up to success, And so I do find that there is a shift in parenting, like there's this conscious parenting, and people are looking for other things to support their children. As a parent, like you would do anything for your kids, and you come second. So parents are looking for this kind of help in regard to, well, how else can I help my kid feel happier or more at peace or less anxious. So it's definitely comes from those younger years, and if we can get it then, it makes a whole difference for their whole lineage for the rest of their life. So yeah, that's why I've kind of fallen into it, and it's just become my mission. And when I really thought about what I could be as a coach and who I could help at multi levels, it's definitely kids. Like it's beautiful. So if I can inspire anybody else to look at working with kids with their personal development, with mindfulness and any kind of, holistic remedy, it really works. It's so powerful.
And someone could really say, when we think about personal development for children, that's like a very new concept, at least in my awareness. like personal development is, from what I have picked up so far, is for people starting at 30, right? If you are very, very conscious of the world and what's going on, you might pick it up with 20. But doing this for children is quite a new concept. And someone might say, well, this will lead to even more being egoistic or being self-centered and all that stuff. What would you tell someone who has that type of thinking around personal development for children?
Good question. I I really believe that it's a part of self-love. It's not egotistical at all. To really work out who you are as a human being, to have confidence in yourself, to have pride, to have all of those things. It should be a given, yet it's not. We, as human beings, we can actually all understand each other. We've all felt either left out before, not connected, maybe unhappy, felt unworthy. All those emotions that we've had, stressed, sad, depressed, all of those, the kids are having them as well. So if you as an adult could resonate with even one emotion and just think that maybe this child has them too, it's a big aha moment. And so I'm not disregarding all the systems we have, because there are some amazing professionals that we have in this world, teachers and doctors and psychologists. But the overwhelming evidence is it's not fully helping our children. They don't want to go to school. There are more self-harm. There is way more youth suicide across the world than we're even hearing about. So why would we not try and bring all this beautiful information? I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. Why would we not bring all this beautiful information down to our kids? There's hundreds of thousands of life coaches and business and healers and meditations and breathwork facilities, all targeted, like you said, at our 30s when we're having our own breakdowns. But if we teach that to our kids, and again, it's not a new concept. I don't remember who it was, but someone said if we all teach our kids to meditate, the whole world will shift. I'm just trying to bring some skill set to the kids that will help them. And it looks so different for every single child. It could be breathing, it might be running, it might be meditation, it might be primal screams, it might be punching a punching bag, it might be having a beautiful conversation, it might be cooking a nice loving meal. Like, kids coaching is so diverse, but it's the holding the space for kids in a different realm of not parenthood, because we all have a little, we listen to our parents, but we kind of don't. Not education, because they don't have choice there. This is a choice. This is an empowering process for kids. This is empowering them. So it's a different space.
My impression personally is, because I grew up in Asia and I saw a completely different way of living and growing up as a kid, very much away from all the developed systems that people and communities have developed, because the village I grew up was very remote. So I grew up in a very natural way as a kid. So a lot of freedom, right? And a lot of connection with nature and myself, and developing core confidence and all that stuff. And when I came to the Western world, to Germany, I noticed how children were actually exempt from developing at all, even though they were claiming that the school system was the most advanced in the world, right? But my observation was that it was not the case. Maybe when it comes to their memory, or what they can memorize about the world and the history and calculating in math and writing and reading, that's all superficial when it comes to development of the
Yes.
human being, in my opinion. And this is so beautiful that you talk about holistic healing and holistic development. And I think the difference in the Western world is really profound, that children are being almost kept prisoners, or remaining children, remaining creatures of incapability, right? Not being able to master their own emotions, not being able of master their own body, or master to take care of themselves, right? I see that so much, even children who are up to 18 years old, when I look at their skill set on all across the board, on all levels, is so much lower when I compare that to the skill set that, for example, Asian or Chinese kids have, especially nowadays. Because what
Yeah.
they do over there in especially China is they teach their very young children to be capable of managing their own bodies, be connected to nature. It is all going away nowadays as well because they mirroring the Western world. But the time where I grew up there, it was very different. The main focus was to give you skills as a kid, and the main goal was to develop you as fast as possible, because
Mm,
the survival of your parents was not really given, because it was a tough life, right? There was not a shop everywhere on every corner. You didn't maybe have everything that you wanted. You had to work really hard to survive. So the goal of the parents was always to make sure the child survives and has the best skills possible. This is how I
yeah.
grew up. So having skills and personal development for children is a natural thing for me. And it
Mm,
surprised me even more that in the Western world, it is a new thing now. And you have to face so many obstacles, misconceptions about personal development for children that people would almost ban this completely. And I'm sure you meet this on a daily basis. What are people thinking and telling you when it comes to personal development with kids that you could label as a misconception or negative belief about it?
Yes, for me, honestly, I'm very lucky that I live in a bubble. I don't have to really reinforce what I'm about because the proof is in the results that the systems are not working. You know, parents, when they finally do come to me, they're so open to listening. You know, I do have my qualifications in youth work and disability, and I've worked in those places in education. They're not really interested in that. They are looking for that thing by the time that they get to me. So they are so open, and the children feel it. If people had a question, I guess then I'd be asking, well, I always ask, what have you done and what hasn't worked? Because that's the best thing. Like, what have you done for these things and what hasn't worked? Because then I want to play in the places where you haven't been before. And I always, as well, give people the option, like, I might not be the best person, and I am a very big empath and energetic person. If I feel that I wasn't the right person for that child, I would refer. Like, there are so many beautiful things. Not every child is the same. Not every skill set is the same, like playing. And I might not have the right skill set for that particular child. They might need a male role model who's going to, you know, maybe a family that doesn't have male role models, and they need that male energy, and you know, a guy to go out and take them to the gym or run or play outside. Nature is a big thing. A lot of my coaches that I've trained take kids out in nature because they're not getting it enough. So these are not new concepts. It's just bringing them into our world where we've let it go. So and that's the beauty as well. Like, we always, so a parent might have an idea. So this is probably the question that's a little bit different. A parent might have an idea of what they want for their child. They're like, my child needs this, my child has this. And I'm like, awesome, can you let me interview with your child or let me meet your child, and they will bring it to me. It's awesome that you've told me that these are the challenges or issues. Every human, if given the chance and the opportunity, has the skills and the wisdom inside to learn or change if they want to. And so that's the biggest thing. So I kind of throw it back, and when the child gets given that opportunity, they always grow, they always learn, and they always say yes because they've been empowered again. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. Um, I am very blessed. It's not a question that comes my way very often, because I honestly believe people are looking. Like, they've already got so many no's, they've already got so many bad experiences, or things that aren't going well. So I've been very blessed in the fact that there's not a lot of questioning about it. It's very open to this. Mm.
It seems like a lot has to happen until parents uh, kind of throw away the traditional way of solving numerous problems when it comes to kids and trauma and parenting and all that stuff. And then they go to holistic coaches or holistic
Right.
kind of ways to solve the problems. It's very funny for me to notice that. And when we talk about holistic healing, could you describe what that means, or maybe even with an example that you
Mm.
already had with a client, maybe, or with a kid, where this could be a beautiful example for many people to imagine what holistic could mean in this sense?
Yeah, so for me, like again, every kid's coach is different. I have a chef that teaches kids how to love by making food and like really energetically bring harmony into the home. And I love him. He's amazing with what he does. For me, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, so I love using language. And so I will play with kids always and bring positive anchoring techniques into their world. So I like to, if I'm doing a group setting, get them to visualize something beautiful. So it might be jumping on a magic carpet, and I'm talking about these are younger ages, not my teenagers, but the ones between 7 and maybe 11. And we play games, and at the studio we'll jump on a yoga mat and we'll pretend that we're on a magic carpet, and we'll go to this beautiful waterfall, and in the waterfall they can see themselves, and we look in the mirror, and then we tell each other things, and I go back to my childhood, like, what did I need to hear? That I was perfect, that I'm beautiful, that I love myself. And I get them to say things out loud that are super powerful that maybe parents didn't hear themselves, so they don't know how to say that to their kid. The education department, the teacher's not allowed to say that they love the kids or they're like, different things. So I'm bringing this different energy, and the stuff that comes out when you ask a kid what they need to hear themselves is so profound. It's so beautiful. So holistic really means speaking from your heart. Holistic really is being of service and bringing unconditional love. And holistic for me is using the modalities that you have. So I have teachers and yogis and counselors and the rest all adding into kids coaching. They're all a little bit different, but it's coming from that really genuine place, and that's what kids feel. That's how they know that they're with a safe human that wants the best for them. And so yeah, it does sound a little woo woo because it is not, it's not psychology, it's not science based, but the proof is in the results. The kids that I work with are so regulated and bring harmony into their homes, and I have an awareness about their own behaviors, and can articulate what's actually going on in their minds, which is beautiful.
Well, that's also something that I noticed, that people oftentimes look for scientific proof before they can believe something, right? While we kind of need to accept the fact that based on our limitations as human beings, right, with our senses, we will probably never be able to describe the world to the fullest and to the realest as it is, even scientifically. And so we are kind of lumping behind on what people already know, right? About gut feeling, about going with your heart, and all these expressions that sound woo woo and completely unscientific, right?
Mhm.
But I find it beautiful that it is possible today to still be a coach, and you do even certifications, right, for other people who want also to become kids coaches. That this is possible without kind of the need of scientific proof for it, because as you say, people need to be brave and courageous enough to actually go into that coaching with their kids and see the results first, and then build kind of that type of trust that they need, that these systems can work, right? That you don't need any specific formula to know before you can trust something, right? And even science can be wrong sometimes. It is wrong all the time, right? Where we go in and after 5 or 10 years, we have to throw everything away that we knew about science, and all of a sudden it's the complete opposite of what we thought we knew about whatever, right? So I would urge listeners to never throw away these holistic and natural ways of thinking, being, and healing, specifically because these methods have been around for thousands of years and they have proven themselves, right? I'm a big advocate of that because being raised in Asia, where these natural ways of being and healing are so big, I have such a big tradition. I want to advocate for this, not only on my show, but also in my personal life and everywhere I go. I want to be an advocate for that. So it's really beautiful to see that this can flourish.
It is so funny that you say that because, one of my favorite like Asian countries is Bali, and I go there a lot. And the Balinese are just such a beautiful energy, and they do bring that to kids, that holistic woo-woo stuff. My driver is a healer himself with energy, and he, literally holds the hands of the kids and does energetic work. And this is something that I learned in my 30s about, Reiki. But as a being, we all have healing properties. We all can hold space. We all can help somebody's body physically feel better by just, giving a hug or holding hands. There's so many cool things that, us in our Western world, we were like, what? That doesn't make sense, but it actually does work. And so all I'm doing is bringing different ideas and concepts into the world, into the families and into the children that are tangible, that they can feel, that they see and feel, and they get the results straight away. So yeah, it is really beautiful to hear, because I didn't think about how the other countries are already doing it, and living in nature and getting outside of these four walls, so important for our regulation, for our nervous system. So there's so many things as well that parents can do that are for free. You don't always have to, but there are some beautiful holistic techniques that are out there. And listening to podcasts like this is really, really going to open eyes and help them realize that there's so much more that they could be doing.
What would you say are the key challenges that children face nowadays? And we mentioned that before, that you said that times have changed when it comes to school, for example, and family life and family structure even has changed compared to 50 years ago, for example, or even for our generation, right? So what are the main challenges that you meet when you have children that you work with?
Yeah, so children have a lot of anxiety now, like we've labeled it, like, they I personally believe that it's technology based. Like they don't get time to be down. We were talking before, they're not out in nature enough, so they're not regulating. They go to school, if you can get them to school. I have a lot of children that don't even want to get out their house and go into that environment. If they do, they come home and then they're on their screens. They can get their connection via talking to people. Like I've got two teenage boys, they game, they get that connection. And then some families, they don't do anything else. So they're so overwhelmed. They're always busy. They're always thinking. They don't get a break from children. And so that this builds up a response in physiology. I can't even say the word. It builds up a response in their body where they can't regulate. So they're always on the go. And so by teaching them other ways to connect, to disconnect as well, is what I'm about. And that can be so many different things. Some kids, as I said, they like to play sport. They like to move their body. Some kids like to relax and they play with crystals with me, or go on the lawn and ground, or journal. Every kid is different, but bringing different concepts to them apart from home and school, it's different. And with coaching as well, everything is welcome. In the schooling system that I worked with, kids were labeled good or bad, really. Behaviors are good or bad. There was no understanding where it came from. It's like, we need to deal with this now, but let's not look at their emotional well-being. Let's not look at where it came from. It's just, let's address the behavior. Let's address the the lack of education here, or where they're statistically at. It's not looking at their whole being, and that's where kids are, I guess, feeling unsafe and disconnected, so the behaviors do get worse. And so the education system is not really geared for well-being and mindset and emotions. It's geared for reading, like you said, reading and writing, and what standard you're at. And so bringing this stuff to them and actually understanding them as a whole being brings about the safety, and for them to then grow.
I see school really as a machinery of slaves, if I may say so, because, and I personally do free school my kids. I've taken them out of my school because we are digital nomads for a couple of years now, and I have decided that this is not the right environment for my kids, and I want to foster them based on their gifts and not based on what the state needs of them, right?
I love that.
And I feel like what you just said, this being constantly busy with either school, homework, or other responsibilities, and then being on any type of tool, right, a laptop or tablet, handy phone or whatever, right, is not allowing them to really connect with themselves. And I think the only way to really reconnect with yourself is by, again, going out in nature, doing sports, using your own body for whatever means, right? Whether it is art, singing, dancing, doing sports, doing something in nature, right? And I think doing this on a daily basis, why do we have to reconnect with ourselves? We could ask that question, right? To reestablish and to deepen the identity. And what my observation is with kids in general, they are losing their identity, or they are not developing a firm and strong identity. And that's why they feel so lost. And that's why anxiety and all these negative emotions find place in their bodies and manifest with illnesses and what have you, right? Because this identity and those boundaries and values never develop, really, because they are being thrown away. I may say so, I will get hate comments, I know, into kindergarten very early on. I did the same thing, right, with my son, right? I didn't see any other way, being a student and everything. But then kind of taking them to school, right? Another cycle starts for them to not really having the chance to develop their identity, right? And their boundaries and their values and all these things. And I think, and I know that the school is not there to develop all that. Just like you said, it's not there to develop their personal emotions, their standards, their values, their boundaries, and all that stuff. It's not meant to do that. But if they wanted to do that, we would need to tear this whole thing down and need to create a whole different system based on the well-being of a human, not a thing, not an object, because this is how children are treated right now, like objects. And I think we need a system where we are being recognized as human beings. But for that, we need to recognize ourselves as human beings first, and we need to demand that. And I don't see parents demanding this. They are doing everything else, blaming everything and everyone else but themselves for not demanding the basics of human existence.
Very good point. It is a battle that I have as well. You know, I've got 3 children myself, and, you know, trying to navigate the education system that we have here, but then provide them beautiful resources to really come into their own. Literally, personal development has saved my life, my family, in every aspect, because my children grow up around communities of people that are like-minded like me, that will challenge them on behaviors and conversations and boundaries and deep vulnerability and expressing themselves. But I've had to use the education system too, because that's the kind of thing that we're stuck with. And you're 100% right. You know, it starts there. Education, label your child with a disability or with a learning, you know, flaw or a need, and then parents come to education or medical systems and say, fix my kid. And then they get medicated, or they get, you know, into these therapies and you know, that may or may not help, but the parents need to go first. Like, we need to learn. That's why I, continue to do the work and learn myself so I can be the best human being. I'm not the best mother all the time. I yell sometimes when I'm at capacity, and I have to unpack with my children and go, well, that's not a behavior that I particularly like. Where did that come from? How do we do better? And I'm always about that. So I lead by example and say, I'm going to go, if I don't know the answer, I'm going to go get it. So we have to then become the integrated humans that we want before our kids do. So it does come into I'm very good at challenging parents now, because it does come into that space of, we need to lead the way, we need to go first. And if we are using the education system or the medical system or whatever else, how can we use it to our advantage and then bring this other stuff to kids so that they are all rounded? There are some, I've met some, there are some beautiful teachers out there, some beautiful doctors that do really care about all of it, but the system itself is broken. It's not always the people that are, that are facilitating it. So I think that collectively we can all work together, but every parent has to, again, discern what's right for their kids and their family. And if it is homeschooling, if it is whatever else, that is important. But I 100% agree the education system needs to change. Like, the kids are not coping emotionally, being dragged to it anymore.
Yeah, and what it kind of does is kind of tear this unit between parents and children apart. And this is very, very unhealthy for children. Of course, if the parent is a drug addict or an alcoholic and they have challenges themselves, and I'm not judging here, right? But they have challenges themselves. These parents need help, like really urgent help. But still, I would be very careful in saying you need to separate the child from the parents, because the parents can't handle it. Right? The child is connected on a deep level, especially to the mother, no matter what the mother is. And so I personally would always go in and heal the relationship between the child and the mother with every resource that is possible on this earth, because a healthy human being can only survive and thrive in this world when the connection between the child and mother is healthy. And of course, the father plays a huge role in this whole unit of family. But still, we have to acknowledge the natural ways of expressing how nature expresses itself, how it creates connection and energy, is through the woman, is through the mother. Right? Yeah. Because the child is connected to the mother for 9 months. A father could never, no matter what he tries, could never make up for these 9 months. He can be an excellent father, and this is beautiful if he is, but he cannot make up for these 9 months. So we need to acknowledge this, and this fight that I see online all the time between, who is needed, who is more urgent for the child's well-being. Is it the mother? Does the child need the father? And all these discussions is useless, because it's obvious, right? And we need to put all our resources towards the moms so that they are healthy. Emotional well-being also starts with the mother, right? If we talk about children and the well-being of kids, it starts with the mom, because she raises the child in her womb.
100%. And I think that beautiful conversation, I don't know how much you know about me, Ella, but I was a drug addict, as a mother. So, actually healing myself has made me a better mother. And, I don't judge either, but there is so much judgment out there in the parent society, in the world. But I work with children that have drug addict parents and different things, and the bond, the safety that they need to heal and understand that their parent is doing the best they can with what they have. And then also the parents being able to be vulnerable enough, and mother saying, I need some help. It could be addiction, it could be mental health, it could be the lot, but that is a very important part of it, that we're not here as coaches or personal development leaders to judge. We're here to offer support in all areas. And offering that thing is like I said, ask for help. There are some beautiful coaches out there that can come into families to help heal. And build that connection. And it doesn't even have to be from, that nth degree of addiction. Teenagers pull away from mothers, especially teenage girls and boys. And I am fully about reconnecting that beautiful conversation and love that we have, because it doesn't matter, again, we come back to boundaries, but it doesn't matter how a parent behaves. If a child, because I battle this a lot, if a parent is behaving in a way that maybe is not resonating with the child or whatever else, I teach the child that you're always going to love your mother or your father. They are your parents. They created you. But what they're teaching you maybe in their life is what you are not going to do. Like, this is beautiful. You can still love them. But if they're behaving or doing something that's okay. They are doing the best of what they can. And we can learn from that and still love and still become the best human being we can. So when I see all of these things that you're talking about, just coming from that place of non-judgment, of love, and wanting to help, we can still let our little humans grow into beautiful people, regardless of the situation or the traumas of what they're going through.
Yeah, and I think teens would gravitate towards separation, especially from the moms, is only when there has been breaking points along the way, years and years and years. Because looking across the world, how teens behave or how teens relate to their parents becoming teens is very different. Like in the Western world, it is very, very obvious. Again, a cultural shock somehow for me when I discovered it the first time. Becoming a teen myself, I wasn't a typical Western teen in that sense. I didn't strive to separate from my parents brutally. There were no fights with my parents whatsoever. Like, it was kind of very mild, while I was observing that all my female friends in school were really battling really hard with their parents. And I couldn't really understand what was going on here. But looking back and kind of comparing different cultures, how they actually raise their kids, is very interesting, because you mentioned that before, the parenting style also changed. And for some parents who are unable to establish enough boundaries and kind of strong values with the kids, being a role model, not just dictating, hey, you got to do this and that, but being a role model, right, will create a safe space for a child to even stay with you even when they are teens, right? They will not have a reason to run. Like, they can leave when they are 18 and they feel like, oh, I need to explore the world, but it will not be like, I'm running from you because that was so horrible, right?
I love the other cultures. Like, I can't, my parents moved in with us when I was having troubles, and when they're older, I can't wait to have them back living with me. And it's just not done in Western society. I loved my parents are a big part of my kids' lives. They help us raise them. And I know that some families don't have that option, but coming back to that and really having that philosophy that, you create a family for forever, not for until they're 15 or 16 or 18 and move out. My oldest is 17, and I said to him the other day, when do you think you'll move out? Because he's getting an apprenticeship and a job. He's like, maybe when I'm 30. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Like, I'll have him forever. But yeah, it's just a different concept, because, I know I was out of the house at 18, I think, as well, had my life. I was more out there. So yeah, I think that if we can just bring ideas and suggestions into families' homes of different concepts, and be aware of the different cultures and ideas on philosophies of how to parent children in a beautiful, more natural way, I think that that's what it's about as well. It's like, bringing some of these things in, because I don't know how we got so lost in the Western world, but we obviously did. We really did. And that's why it's important for this stuff to weave its way back in.
My feeling is that it might have been lost because people have been so busy with technology and innovation and creating different machineries for this and that, and making life easier by creating types of automations and again machines and cars and all that stuff. If I look at the industrialization, right, at that time, right, comparing that to other cultures, like if you look at the African continent, for example, like how many different African cultures actually still live today. And if you look at the children, they barely have like 3 meals a day, right? If you're lucky, you have 3 components on your plate. Like that's really a celebration, right? And a rare thing for many cultures still in African countries. But still, when you look in their faces, they're like the happiest
They are.
because like the nuclear family still not perfect. Nothing is perfect, but there are still certain values that are able to hold the child, that are able to create that safe space for the child to develop in certain ways. Of course, there are also rituals and things that I would never subscribe to when it comes to African cultures. But in general, when you have more traditional family structures, and I say that as a single mom, but
Yeah.
you grow and you learn, you know. But when you have like more traditional family structures, you tend to have a like pillars that hold the family together because you actually can. You are not working on surviving, but you're actually on the next level of thriving. And I think with having mother, father, and children together representing certain values, it doesn't mean that your family will be well off just because you have a mother and a father, but I feel establishing the values, right, the right values in the family will actually create that strength of the family where all of them, all people, all the different parts of the family will strive to make the family better, will strive to grow as a family, not just, oh, we live beside each other, right? We are roommates, right? This is also kind of a Western concept that I observed, like we're just
Yes.
roommates, especially in the US. Like that's my impression,
Yeah.
right? And not so much like we grow together, we evolve together, we really develop together, right?
I think it expands further than that as well. Like, yes, beautiful family values. And I love the fact, I have a wife now. So, but I still know the importance of masculine and feminine energy in children's lives. They need the both. But I think it extends further than that, like, roommates in houses. But what about the streets that are lined with houses that are not a community? Do you know your neighbor? Like, yes, maybe your neighbor's amazing, maybe they're not. But that's why I think for me, the personal development industry as a whole opens up so many beautiful doors with like-minded souls and humans that have the same values that we can expand. So if you are a single mum, you might meet a beautiful male role model that can still be a part of your family's lives. If you are a same-sex family and you want the opposite to come in, growing our communities, because there are so many single mums out there are so many single carers or families or dads even that need extra help for their children, because it really does take a community to help a child thrive. And that community, like we said, is really not being fulfilled in the education system anymore. So expanding your knowledge and your groups, in here in Australia, we have so many free, communities that you can go and participate in and meet like-minded souls. And that's really important as a parent to then be around people that have the same values as you. Like, where you want to go camping, you want to be outdoors, you want to cook a beautiful meal and share it. Like, those things really make a difference in kids' lives. They sound simple, but they do, because we're bringing apart the regulation, the love, the community, the good people around them, to know that they have other role models that they can ask questions of or relate to or connect to. So yeah, I think it expands that even that little bit further than family. Family, amazing, but yeah, if we don't have it, because a lot of people don't, they have boundaries and they don't have support from immediate family, go looking into some beautiful communities, because you can find it there as well.
And since you mentioned that you have a wife, I feel you have a unique perspective on maybe my next question, that you could answer in a way that I probably could not. So nowadays we have the LGBTQ community, right? And this topic is very big, right? The gender identity and how you identify yourself, right? And this really starts very, very early now for children,
Mm-hmm.
especially to confront them with this topic. I would really love to know your perspective, how you see it. Does it play a role in your work, and how does it play out?
Oh, good question. Um, I believe that there's way too much social media on this stuff. I believe that we're confusing our children. I grew up, I'm 42, so I grew up in a country region. There were no lesbians, but I knew innately in my body that I was attracted to both. Like I would call myself bisexual, and I knew that myself. I worked that out myself. There was no Facebook or groups that I could go join. I've worked with transgender children and people, and I believe that everybody has that their own exploration in regard to their sexuality and who they want to be. But I believe it should be done in a more natural way, not thrown in their faces. Are you a she, her, they, them? Like, don't even get me started. I accept all. I don't judge all. If that's what you want to be and that's who you want to, that's how you want to raise your children. I still use him, her. Are you a boy, girl? I think that you have to go with what's right for you. But I honestly believe there's too much information to confuse the subject for our children. Like, let them just be the person that they are, and let them grow and explore and be open. Like, so for me, my boys had to go through the fact that I had left their dad, and that's obviously confusing, and then I had a girlfriend, and that became my wife. So in our home, I talk about when they're from a very young age, how are you? How was your day? Do you like a girl? Do you like a boy? That was a very open conversation. So in my home, that's good. In other people's homes, that's a no. Like, they might be homophobic, or they might not have that conversation. Whereas I'm about inclusive environments in all aspects. So we talk about everything in our home. And it's really interesting because kids are just so open. They're just so curious. I mentioned to them that I have a wife, and that we've got a little daughter ourselves, and kid will be, how did you have a baby? You got two girls. And I have to be very careful because depending on other people's values and beliefs of what I can and can't say into people's homes. But I'll say, yeah, you're right, it still takes a man and a woman to create a baby, and we were lucky that we got a gift and we have a baby together. So I have to be very, but their kids just accept it, which is so beautiful. That I do love having those conversations. There's no and so I guess I get to lead the way. I'm an open book. They can ask me anything. But I also like to just reflect back. I was part of the LGBTQ group at the school, and I think that there are some beautiful safety nets now for kids that do have these questions and the curiosity. But I think that we also have to be very aware that we don't have to give every bit of information and everything out there all the time. Let them have their own questions and curiosity, and let them find their own way. So I would never provide information. I would ask a question, if that makes sense. Help a child navigate it that way. Well, what do you think? What do you feel? What is your question? So I don't know if that answers it or not, but I try and come from it as my own experiences, and let them have their own.
I really do love this perspective, because there is really a big difference between being that safe space and holding that space for them to come with any questions to you, and forcing your information or maybe your perspective, mindset, and beliefs onto the children, just to make it look like, or wanting them to be whatever you want them to be, right? I think this is really beautiful, to rest in your confidence and in your knowledge and expertise that you might have, or even experience, right? And you have a unique experience as a woman now in this life, to have had both, right? And finding that grace also to communicate that to a child, so that the child understands, or kind of has the chance to understand these things. And for me too, my observation is that there is just too much information around that is kind of feels quite forceful, right?
Yeah.
And a young child is really, whenever you force something onto them, they will either fall into a hole because they wholeheartedly start to believe in it, or they will
Mm-hmm.
reject it with the core of their souls. And this is two things that you don't want, right? Not as a parent, not as a teacher, not as any type of adult that is healthy, right? Or right in their minds. So what you want for a child is rather to, just like you said, to find their way on their
To be
own
curious.
terms.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think having their own timing for things, I mean, especially when it comes to this topic, right? Each and every child is so individual, right? And if you all of a sudden, for example, in school, start to educate them, do sexual education for them in first grade, for example, like you will scare a lot of kids off, right? And especially if, and that happens with the normal education. Now, if you start with transgender and LGBTQ education in first grade, now imagine what happens with the kids and the kids' brain that is not even there yet in their developmental stage, right?
Yeah, and as I said, I think that we've got way too much information. It should be fun. It should be curious. People should have open minds when it comes to that and not have an agenda. I don't have an agenda when somebody wants to ask me about my life or my sexual orientation. I'm not here to, promote one way or the other. But I think that yeah, it depends on people's intention, and again, it just shows where the education system's falling down, because we want children to be individually themselves. We want them to have confidence in themselves. We want them to feel free. We want them to be able to express and have that curiosity. And that's where you grow. And yet, when we are in a society that is so in your face in regard to everything, then there becomes that need to fit in, to mask. Oh, maybe I'm bisexual then, because I should be in the LGBT community. Or maybe, I've got anxiety as well. So I'm going to say that I've got, a headache or bellyache, or, and to the worst point, kids are also, self-harming now because they see it on TikTok or whatever. So there's way too much information on every single topic that we could possibly think about, including sexual information and the rest. I think that really comes back to it. There's just way too much information at an early age, where they should be in exploration and working out their own bodies in nature, having fun, asking questions of beautiful role models, teachers, parents, community. That makes a beautiful, fulfilled child, not all the other stuff that gets bombarded in their worlds.
Absolutely. Yeah. And every child needs to kind of make that decision, not based on external factors like, oh, what's the new trend now on social media, right?
Correct.
But from
Correct.
their own identity. But if they don't have an identity and it's not strong enough, they will not make that decision. Other people will make that decision for them. And this is what you want to avoid as a parent, right? That you kind of need to first make sure that your child finds an identity, a very strong identity and connection within the family, no matter how the constellation of the family is, like it is for you, for example, right? Or like it is for me, or a married couple, right? Or any other constellation that you can think of nowadays, right? It needs to
Yeah.
have a strong connection. And then from there, the child will be able to make decisions that are really not harmful for them, but
Yeah.
really helps them flourish as a human being, no matter in what direction they will go, right? It can be LGBTQ, it can be whatever they want to choose, right? Whatever they feel they are, right? And
Correct.
on one hand, it is really beautiful that in the Western world, compared to, let's say, in the Arabic world and in the Muslim world, it's not very accepted, right? It's
Correct.
in some areas, it is very dangerous to live as an
Yeah.
LGBTQ or right and in the
In
Western
com-
world, it is very free. And on one hand, it is very, very good that people can find themselves, and that these realms have established kind of spaces where they can think about these things. On the other hand, my feeling is that it's kind of getting out of hand. Like nobody is there's no regulation, if you will, right? There's kind of spiraling wildly into the space, and people are confused, right, about what to do. Parents are confused what to do and how to guide their children. If you could leave one message for this interview to the kids, what would you tell them?
Oh, wow. That you have everything you need inside of you, that every single thought and feeling that you're going through is totally normal, that there are some beautiful, beautiful teachers and adults out there that are trustworthy of you asking for help from. If you ever get turned away from an adult or get an answer that is not right for you, keep looking, keep asking, because there are some beautiful humans out there that really do want to see you thrive. But yeah, they have everything that they need inside of them. They're already born with it. And just finding that light or that trust or that courage to keep going is so important.
Thank you. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm thekidzcoach.com.au, and it's kids with a Z, just to make it a little different. And there's multiple places on there. Like you've got my socials. I do a lot of free work. I have a free program as well. So you can find me there. And for anybody that does do TikTok, I'm on TikTok as well, just Nichole Hamilton. So find me, and there's places, and we'll obviously put the links for my free stuff in here as well.
Yes, you can find all the links in the show notes and in the description to get in contact with Nichole and maybe start working with her. Thank you so much, Nichole, for this beautiful conversation. And I would really love to reconnect with you and continue this conversation, because there are so many more questions that we need to go through.
100%. I think that this is a beautiful, you've really taken me on a different path as well, Ella. So I really appreciate the conversation we've had, which has opened up so many different ideas for me also, and other parents, hopefully. So yeah.
Thank you so much.